This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on key features of Women's Reservation Bill. The participants are Sandeep Phukan, political analyst, and Chetan Chauhan, journalist.
The functioning of the new parliament building starting today. Sandeep, how do you see this change from the old parliament building to the new one? What are your views on this?
Well, as the Prime Minister himself said, that today was an auspicious day. It is Ganesh Chaturthi, and at the start of this special session, the 5-day session that got underway on Monday, yesterday, the Prime Minister had said that you pray to Lord Ganesh to remove any obstacles. On the occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi, it's a transition from the old to the new. It's a symbol of continuity. I heard the leader of the Congress, the single largest opposition party in the Lok Sabha, speak in the new parliament where he said that there had been demands for a new building. This was raised even during the UPA tenure when Meera Kumar was Lok Sabha Speaker. Then when NDA government came to power in 2014, former Speaker Sumitra Mahajan had also raised this issue, the issue of a new building. So Mr. Chaudhary, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary made the point that they have transitioned from the old to the new building, but they will keep the tradition of parliamentary democracy and constitutional values alive. Prime Minister himself mentioned in his speech, he recalled the great moments, starting with India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru's speech, Tryst with Destiny, to the abrogation of Article 370 that provided special status to J&K in the old parliament building. So as I see it, it's a symbol of both change and continuity. Continuity in terms of our parliamentary legacy and tradition. Change in terms of, moving from an old iconic building to a new building with all the modern facilities. And there are quite a few features which are environment friendly. It will be a paperless parliament. Everything is digitized, including that, I read somewhere that the mics that every speaker will have on their seats, the mic will go off as soon as the allotted time to the speaker gets over. So it will be interesting to see how it functions. Of course, today being the first day, we saw Prime Minister speak. And then, of course, leader of the single largest party in the opposition, the Congress leader, Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary speaking there. I am talking about the Lok Sabha, followed by Prime Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal introducing the 128th Constitutional Amendment Bill that will provide 1/3 reservation to women legislators, both in the Lok Sabha as well as state assemblies.
Yes, Sandeep, Prime Minister also spoke about that India has to work on a bigger canvas in the next 25 years of Amrit Kal. He also said that reforms carried out in the country must cater to the aspirations of 1.4 billion Indians. And there was another suggestion of his that the old Parliament House could be named as a Samvidhan Bhavan, and it should not be said as an old Parliament building because the Constitution was framed there. The Constituent Assembly held its meeting there. And he also spoke extensively about how the India has to become self-reliant in area of defense, energy, edible oil, farm sector. He also spoke about that how India can become a number one country in manufacturing, that many areas that India have to reach the global standard, and also the products from the villages of the states reach best markets in the world. We also spoke about the higher education system, that our university is one of the best in the world, but we have to improve on the education system. So a lot of commitments he made for the next 25 years, this direction in which India needs to go up in the coming years, and how the development can be moved faster so the benefits reach to the lowest level straight of the society. And he also spoke about the G20 and also how India is now being respected as Vishwamitra by the global leaders in the context of successful G20 meeting. On the Prime Minister's speech, which was very elaborate yesterday, today, what do you have to say?
Right. I think let us begin with the point that he made about Samvidhan Southern Constitution House, the old building in the Central Hall, the iconic Central Hall, and the old Parliament building that saw the historic sittings of the Constituent Assembly that drafted the Constitution of India, that saw the first sitting, the midnight, speech. So it has a huge significance. So that is exactly what I said, that, I see this as continuity and change. Continuity in terms of our rich parliamentary tradition and legacy. And that is why the Prime Minister aptly said that in the old Parliament building should be referred to as Constitution House, Samvidhan Sadan, where, legendary figures like B.R. Ambedkar and others who were involved in the drafting of the Constitution, historic debates in the Constituent Assembly, that really laid the foundation of the modern democracy that we have today. In terms of his speech, I think, Chetan, we'll have to appreciate that this is a special session. Now we know that the special session has a special purpose, and that is to try and pass a landmark bill, the 128th Constitutional Amendment Bill that seeks to provide 1/3 reservation to women lawmakers, both in the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies. And that is why the Prime Minister had, outlined the vision of his government, as he put it, in the Amrit Kal. So he also, when speaking to reporters just before the session got underway yesterday, he had actually said he hoped that there wouldn't be any hindrance in the development process of India. And in that context, he had outlined the vision of his government, vision for the country, what he hopes to achieve, both in terms of development, in terms of education, in terms of development of human resource. So the speech, you can say, actually lays down a roadmap. It also recalls the achievements in our parliamentary history in the past 75 years and in the past 7 decades, and the rich legacy that we have, the achievements that we have made, and also the goals that we have. As Prime Minister earlier in several speeches, he had made his vision clear that he hopes to see India as a developed nation by 2047, when we would have acquired 100 years of independence. Chetan?
Today is also one of the most important days for women in the country. The bill the government is confident of passing of the 33% reservation for women in the legislative assemblies. We know that in 1992, the constitutional amendment was passed for 33% reservation in panchayats, which has brought a large number of women leaders to the national front, including President Murmu, who was first elected in 1997 to a local municipality on a seat reserved for a women tribal. So there are many, many examples of this. And we have also seen that many of the parties which had earlier opposed the women reservation bills have changed their stand and favor the bill now. So my question is, how will the women reservation bill bring a paradigm shift in the Indian politics, and why it has been introduced in the special session?
As you rightly put it, it's a historic moment and a landmark bill. This bill, has seen many ups and downs. You are right. This was mooted as far back as the Rajiv Gandhi government in the 80s. But that bill could not be passed. The first attempt was to bring in reservation at the local bodies level and the panchayat level. That was actually passed in 92-93 during the Narasimha Rao government. Then in 96-97, again, an attempt was made, but did not pass. Then in 2010, during Manmohan Singh's time, March, I think coinciding with the International Women's Day, the bill was passed amid a lot of opposition and protest by allies of the then government in the Rajya Sabha, but obviously it failed to clear the Lok Sabha test. So this time, the government is fairly confident that it will be able to pass. The big difference between then and now is the kind of numbers that the government has. The NDA has very good, comfortable, sizable majority, over 300 MPs in the Lok Sabha. And technically, if you add up all the parties, Congress Party, Samajwadi Party, the left parties, and as you rightly mentioned, even Samajwadi Party that was strongly opposed to the bill earlier has softened its stand. So numbers should not be a problem in the Lok Sabha, and even in the Rajya Sabha, if Congress left, BRS, Trinamool, of all of them come together, numbers should not be a problem. But one has to keep in mind that this is a constitutional amendment bill. So the constitutional amendment bill, there has to be order in the House. It cannot be simply passed. It has to be order in the House and there will be division. So it cannot be passed in the din. The government's floor managers will have to manage that. As of now, we haven't come across any party openly coming out and opposing the bill. We do know that in the past, parties like Rashtriya Janata Dal of Lalu Prasad Yadav, Nitish Kumar Janata Dal United, they have demanded quota within quota for other backward classes, for the OBCs. This bill provides for quota within quota for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, but this bill is pretty much the same bill that was passed in the Rajya Sabha in 2010. So, however, there is no quota within quota for OBCs. So, we will actually have to wait and see how these parties respond. But in terms of numbers, Chetan, I do not see any problem at all in terms of getting this bill passed. But as I said, that the technicality is that this is a constitutional amendment bill and there needs to be order in the House for the bill to be passed with a division of votes. And we will have to see how some of these parties that had opposed in the past, how do they proceed when this bill is taken up for discussion and passage in both the houses.
Prime Minister, while speaking Rajya Sabha, has said that he hopes that the Rajya Sabha clears the bill, which indicates that the government anticipates that it may be slightly difficult to get the numbers in Rajya Sabha, even if the Congress is with them, because a 2/3 majority of the members present in the House is needed for a constitutional amendment like this. So do you perceive that it will be a problem, or do you see a safe sealing of the bill in both the houses of the parliament, even though it is the government has clearly made it clear that 2024 Lok Sabha elections, the seats will not be reserved for women. It will be done only with delimitation in 2025-2026.
Rajya Sabha, yes, Chetan, as you know, that the NDA's majority is not an overwhelming majority. And as you know, that in a constitutional amendment bill, it has to be passed by 2/3 majority of those present and voting. So, 2/3 majority would be important. If you go by the numbers, I do not see actually numbers should be a problem unless, some party brings a surprise. Because if you look at it on the face of it, other than parties, that I just mentioned, parties like, say, Janata Dal United or Rashtra Janata Dal. For example, Telangana Rashtra Samiti, or rather now it's named as Bharat Rashtra Samiti, they have been demanding, they have supported, as you yourself mentioned, and there have been public statements to that effect that even parties like the Samajwadi Party haven't opposed. Congress has welcomed the bill. So in terms of numbers, it should not be, I suppose, what the Prime Minister could have also mentioned is that in the Rajya Sabha, as I said, that if you recall the Prime Minister's words, he had actually said that there have been many attempts in the past, but he said that during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, it could not be passed because of lack of numbers. And there have been other attempts also. Specifically during the UPA, it was passed. But the irony was that the allies who said to have supported the bill when, the UPA cabinet had taken up, they had turned against the bill when the bill came to the floor of Rajya Sabha. So, and there was a very strong opposition. So, as I said, that there has to be order in the House. It has to follow a certain procedure, as is the case with all constitutional amendment bills. Technically, going by the stated positions of the political parties, several political parties have actually had demanded this or had raised this at the all-party meeting that was convened by the government on September 17th, last Sunday, to discuss about the 5-day special session. So I do not foresee problem in terms of number, but as I said, the challenge is to maintain the decorum inside the House as is required for a constitutional amendment bill. That is the only challenge.
Sandeep. Yeah, in the end, I would just like to say that with the introduction of this bill, the government has to try to make this special session in the new building symbolic, because it aims to give reservation to women in the Legislative Assembly, which has been on hold for the last more than 30 years. So there's a lot of symbolism in this special session, and we hope that the Parliament, the new building, passes the historic and the landmark Women Reservation Bill. With it, thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Chetan.
You were listening to a discussion on key features of Women's Reservation Bill. The participants were Sandeep Phukan, political analyst, and Chetan Chauhan, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 928-909-4044.